yeah, we're going to be doing a lot of driving today, and I'm like, I don't know how much of the driving I would be able to do. I'm just going to be so sleepy.
How far? Where do you go?
We go up by Grand Rapids, so it's about 5.5 hours.
It's a poke.
It is.
But it's fun.
It is fun. Well, it used to be we would have a Thanksgiving Eve worship service, so we'd have to leave like really early Thursday morning, and that was just not a good way to do it.
We
So.
used to have that all the time.
Yeah.
It was ecumenical.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we did our ecumenical one this Sunday and had a few.
I fell asleep. To be very honest.
I was asleep, and then I had to wake up to go do it.
I took a nap. Oh, yeah. So you go to Mankato and pick up Sophia?
Well, originally Sophia and I were going to drive together because she has to come back before us,
Right.
but then she called yesterday saying she was really sick.
Oh, no.
So she called this morning saying she's feeling a bit better, but still not great.
Oh, I feel that.
So we'll see. We'll either be swinging over there and meeting up with her, or
Let's hope for a day of healing, huh?
yeah, I'm hoping.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah, she got into work. She'd been feeling terrible, but was going to push through it. Got to work, and she was just so weak. She didn't feel safe driving home. She had grandma come and get her. But she tested negative for COVID and negative for strep and all that stuff. So
Just a real nasty bug.
yeah, there's plenty of nasty stuff going around.
There is. This is a tough time of year.
Yeah.
Very tough.
Yep. But we're coming up on Christ the King Sunday, last Sunday of the church year. Oh boy, and then we get into Advent.
I saw the white pyramids. They look so nice.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out why. My son explained it to me. I said, oh, okay, thank you.
But yeah, so it's I don't know. These last weeks leading up now to the end are all really tough
Yes,
scripturally. And there's some tough stuff in Advent too, but this is just the particularly difficult. So it's like it's almost a relief when you're through them, but yet
It's an important
it's
thing.
an important thing.
Very, very good comments about Sunday.
Good. Oh good, because that was a hard one.
Nailed it.
Well, good. I'm relieved. So we have judgment again this coming Sunday, but not quite as harsh. There's no weeping or gnashing of teeth this time. No outer darkness. So that's a relief. There's eternal punishment.
Oh, good. Just to lighten the mood.
Just to lighten the mood a little bit. We got to end up with that, So. Oh, we'll start with the prayer. Almighty and everlasting God, whose will it is to restore all things to your beloved Son, whom you anointed priest forever and King of all creation, grant that all the people of the earth, now divided by the power of sin, may be united under the glorious and gentle rule of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. So we're finishing out our year of the Gospel of Matthew in Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46. Jesus compares himself to a king who moves among his subjects to see how he is treated. What is done for the least of those who belong to his family is truly done for him. Jesus said to the disciples, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand and the goats at the left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, 'Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me.' Then the righteous will answer him, 'Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?' And the king will answer them, 'Truly I tell you, just as you did it to one of the least of these, who are the members of my family, you did it to me.' And he will say to those on his left hand, You that are accursed, depart from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me no food. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not give me clothing. Sick and in prison, and you did not visit me. Then they also will answer, Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not take care of you? Then he will answer them, truly I tell you, just as you did not do it for one of the least of these, you did not do it to me. And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. The gospel of the Lord. So, serious business again. You know, Jesus is kind of going, look, rubber's meeting the road here. This text is often referred to as the Last Judgment, describing the end of time when the Son of Man returns. Jesus uses the phrase Son of Man to describe himself sitting on the throne with all the angels at the time of judgment. All nations gather before him. The age-old questions about the second coming of Christ, when and what sign, are answered in a surprising way. Christ comes now in the least. The poor and the suffering are signs of Christ's presence. How does Christ connect and identify with those in need?
He's the least of these. His humanity, you know, the bottom rung, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
And this time of year, I am amazed at the contribution letters that come. My husband donated for the Legion, he donated for the church, he donated for us personally, and so you go through those, and every one of them has a legitimate need.
Absolutely.
A legitimate need. And they are heartbreaking, some of them. So that, I think this time of year, especially with Thanksgiving, you're reminded of how much you have and how little others have, and how much you should try and do to help. And like the giving tree at school. Linda putting that box out in the hallway for mittens and gloves and hats for the food shelf, which she said has been getting increasingly busier.
I am sure. There's plenty who
and new
are
families.
struggling. Well, you know, every year, we'll say, yeah, we got new kids. You know, some will stay, some don't. You don't know. And a lot of them come without what they need.
Some pretty heartbreaking stories.
Yeah. And we were more aware of it when they were in elementary school.
Yes.
You know, I remember one of her good buddies didn't have any socks. And it was just like, well, yeah, that's just the way it is. Oh, well, we're going, I think we can help you out with that. With teenagers, it's hard to know. They're showing up in flip-flops and shorts and 30 below.
They're pretty secretive, too, about things.
Yep.
But never a time of year when the need is more apparent.
Well, and that Jesus specifically is identifying himself as Son of Man, identifying the humanness, and identifying himself with the least. He's not identifying himself with us, because we really can't claim the least here.
We're pretty blessed.
You know, and
absolutely. I wonder what he'd look at the people in the Middle East right now. I want to talk about want and need.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. But they're going to give him 4 days.
I hope it holds.
I hope so too.
And I don't know what's going to take for a permanent peace. I just don't know. It's just horrific. It's just horrific. You know, there's no clean hands in this in any way, shape, or form, except for the poor innocents who are being killed. I was
displaced.
Are displaced.
There's nothing left. Their houses are rubble. They didn't have much to begin with, and now they have even less.
I was listening to a report yesterday. The Israeli army allowed a small group of journalists in to see the hospital that was destroyed. You know, it was extremely limited and extremely, you know, what they could see and what they could take pictures of. But they're like, this is the only way we're going to be able to see this. And so they went, and he talked about, he's like, you know, just even this last summer, I was in Gaza, and there are people sitting at these cafes talking and drinking coffee, and now there's nothing there.
Yeah.
You know, the Gaza was a place of life and light, and now there's...
And how do their lives go on?
Yeah. Now what?
Yeah.
It's just,
And what about the surrounding countries? They're going to be asked to take them in.
well, so many Palestinians are just running for it. And where do you go?
I have a friend that lives in southern Germany, and she was talking about the huge influx of migrants into their part of the world,
Yeah.
coming from, from Turkey, from
Yeah.
further east. Yeah.
And that creates issues because, you know, the people come in that they come in, but that doesn't mean they automatically adopt the social mores of the country they're in. And that creates a lot of tension.
There's worry that they're carrying the political theories with them.
Yes. Yep. Ugh, it's so complicated.
So we shouldn't watch the news?
No, we have to.
Yep.
Jesus uses the image of a shepherd who divides the sheep from the goats. This would be a commonly understood image. Sheep and goats mingle and graze together in the pastures during the day, but at the night, or when the sheep are to be sheared or the goats milked, they are separated. The great shepherd is the shepherd for both the sheep and the goats and knows them all. I think that's a really important point. He's the shepherd for all of them. Note that neither those identified in the parable as the sheep nor the goats knew who it was that they were serving or not serving. They did not act or fail to act to earn Jesus' favor or gain their salvation. Yeah, because they both were like, when did we see you? Rather, the faithful lived out their faith daily in the ordinary actions and service to others in need. They are called blessed, the word Jesus uses in the Beatitudes to describe the faithful disciple. They have an attitude of a servant, reaching out and caring for those in need with the heart of Jesus. They fulfill what Jesus described earlier in Matthew as the great commandment, to love God and to love the neighbor. Followers of Jesus of every time and place are to act with the same attitude of servanthood and compassion. This parable sheds light on the sins of omission, the things we are called to do that we fail to do. It is one thing to admit and confess our sins of commission, naming the wrongs we've done. We can often readily identify and name our sinful actions, but it is a more difficult task to name and identify those things we failed to do, those needs we did not even recognize. This passage shakes us to our core. The world is big. The needs are great. What are some sins of omission, those things left undone? Oofda.
Yeah. I wonder what they want.
Well, I mean, it's an open-ended question.
Yeah.
You know, what is not being taken care of that's meant to be taken care of, you know?
The world has always found itself in a situation where there are people that are suffering and people that aren't, and the issue is what to do and how to do it and when to do it, and
Well, and that, you know, there's times when we should speak out, we should say something, and we don't, for a lot of different reasons.
absolutely.
And
Yeah, it isn't just physical acts. It's
yeah, because that's one of the things Sadie really struggled with. There's a classmate of hers that she just doesn't care for, really struggles with behavior, and they take some crap from other students, and she knows that's not right. So she tries to treat this person well, but it's also really hard because they drive her up the wall, and she doesn't want to spend time with them. And I'm like, I know, babe, I know.
Yeah, or they throw it back in their face. And kids at that age are very sensitive to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it takes great courage to stand up for somebody else.
Yeah. And sometimes, I just don't want to be noticed. I just want to get through my day.
Yeah, yeah,
Let me get through my day.
yeah, absolutely.
Let me survive my classes.
We teachers, we said the same thing. We just want to get through the day.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe
Survive the
it.
classes.
That's what I was wondering. Today is a half day. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, are they getting anything accomplished
Yeah,
today?
they're singing and dancing. Yeah, and I've seen kids stand up for other kids. I've seen it, and it's marvelous. You don't see it very often though, because whoever that individual is that stands up for somebody else has a pretty strong sense of self.
Yeah. And they know that they're going to take grief.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it's no easier as adults. I mean,
Not a bit.
there's times when we need to call stuff out, and oh God, I don't want to get involved.
Well,
or
I
don't know
think
what
we're
to
great
say.
at figuring out, okay, if I do, this is what's going to happen. So I think we're really good at looking at the consequence.
Yes, we do cost analysis for everything, and it's like,
We're not supposed to.
we're not supposed to, but of course we're gonna. What is this gonna cost me?
Yeah.
What am I
How
gonna
much
have to
am
pay?
I willing to pay?
Yeah,
How much am I willing to
absolutely,
put myself out on
absolutely.
the end of that long
I still remember when we watched To Kill a Mockingbird when I was a kid, and one of my classmates going, "Why did her dad, do that? I mean, he put his whole family in danger, and I mean, what was he thinking? Taking care of your family should be the priority." And we had this whole conversation about, how do you do the right thing?
Yeah, that was a really great example of doing what you know is right, and to heck with the consequences. But it was a dangerous situation.
Dangerous,
So
yeah.
it wasn't just someone saying bad things to you.
No, it was,
It was physical danger.
yep.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Well, and I think of those who, I mean, you saw it more when there was a lot of demonstrating about race and things like that.
Yeah.
But I think it's still true yet today. There's still danger in speaking up.
Vietnam War. Being on a college campus at that time, and being part of some groups that had very strong opinions, and of course as kids, you probably don't think too far down the road, but it was
Well, I would think after Penn State happened, I would be scared to death as a student.
it changed things drastically.
I am sure.
Oh, it did. Because then all of a sudden, it was very real that there were consequences for your actions.
Absolutely.
And
That the picture just sticks
Yes.
with me. I remember learning about it and just like, oh my
that
gosh.
woman
That
kneeling
woman
down
kneeling
with that.
and just the anguish on
Yeah.
her face.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting times.
Yeah. Well, what is the Chinese curse is, may you live in interesting times.
Well, we have.
And we sure
We have. Yeah. Absolutely.
The parable of the Last Judgment leads directly in Matthew's Gospel, into the account of the passion and death of Jesus. Just as Jesus has identified in the parable with the least and the suffering, he enters into his own suffering and death. What role does compassion have in this passage?
Well, without it, you're never going to try to help someone, or you have to be able to identify with them, I think, in a way, and say, oh boy, if that was me, I hope that
Exactly.
somebody would. And the old saying, which we say all the time, there but for the grace of God.
Well,
Why?
yeah.
All the time, especially when you watch the news.
The news, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, the only reason that Jesus goes to the cross is out of compassion,
It is his destiny.
That's,
Yeah.
and and I just think the concept or the I don't know, priority or the value placed on compassion has drastically dwindled, I feel.
I think people can see it as a luxury sometimes.
Yeah.
That I can't afford to be compassionate. I have all I can do to keep body and soul together as it is.
Yeah.
And you ask me to go beyond that, I haven't got it.
Yeah, I'm thinking one of the things I might mention this Sunday, there's some pastors who've been talking in the national sense of, they've been hearing from their parishioners that they haven't approved of hearing some of the scriptures about compassion and loving your enemy and all this stuff. That Jesus is just too soft. And why are you preaching that kind of liberal stuff? And the pastor's like, this is Jesus's words. Well, Jesus is just, this stuff is just too soft. You can't be like this. And it's just like,
You can't change the words.
no. And since when did compassion become a particular political affiliation? And when did compassion become anything but just what it is? How can that become a politically loaded issue? It's been really interesting. So I was going to bring that up this Sunday because one of the things I'm going to talk about is the reason we have Christ the King Sunday is because the Pope during World War II was reacting to Mussolini and the rise of fascism in Italy. And that claim of, ultimate power and ultimate authority,
yes,
and trying to speak against that, saying, no, the Lord is our King. The Lord is the ultimate authority. Trying to speak to that in a way that isn't going to get everybody killed. Mm-hmm. And I think, by golly, we still need to think in those terms. I think that's a very powerful thing for today.
I don't think people would readily think about the fact that there could be dissension involved in the way people approach Christianity, the way,
It's called Christian nationalism.
I think we've heard about that before.
Yeah.
The pastor mentioned it.
Yeah, this is something he gets. I mean, it just consumes him because it upsets him so much. The people use the name of Christ to push an agenda that is so anti what Christ stands for. Yeah, which is true ever since Jesus died. I mean, people have always made Scripture support whatever it is they're doing.
Yes, yeah, but that is a very strange take. That he's too much compassion.
Yeah, there's just he's too soft. Too soft.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, then the question begs itself: what would you have him be?
Well, exactly, and also with the awareness of however you would have him be would be to you as well, not just to those you don't like. And it's like maybe you need to rethink that vision.
Whoa, interesting.
And none of us have a monopoly on an understanding of Christ, but I take him seriously when he tells us to love God and love your neighbor, for heaven's sakes.
The tenets on which we stand.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And the older you get, the more questions you have.
Yeah. That's one older lady that I got to know in my first call. Mm-hmm. Just so full of wisdom, just such a lovely person. And she said, yeah, you'd think, when you get to my age that you just have figured some things out. She's like, oh goodness, no. I've got more questions.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, Frida.
Yeah.
If you don't know, I don't know what we're going to do. What is the surprise in this passage? Does anything from this surprise you? I think at my text study yesterday, one person brought up a point that I guess I hadn't really paid attention to, was that everybody was surprised. When did we see you, Lord? Whether they were doing the right thing or not.
So ones who had done compassionate works and ones who hadn't.
They all were like,
wondered when.
Wait a minute, when did we?
Because I saw a beggar and that wasn't you. And
yeah.
I saw,
that it's not just, oh, Jesus might be looking this direction, let's do something nice. It's, this is a part of who we are and how we live, whether anybody's looking or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I just appreciated that point she wrote, lifted up, because I'm like, oh my goodness, yeah. I need to spend some time pondering that thought.
It's a lot of things to ponder.
Oh, that's the thing. That's the thing. With all of these, there's so much. And we just kind of dip our toe in.
Yeah.
All right, word among us. Small, seemingly insignificant, and forgotten deeds done in everyday living are lifted up as service to Jesus himself. The sheep in the parable today were surprised, unaware of the good things they were doing. Their ministry had become a natural response to being a part of Christ's family, a natural outflowing of life, an internalized faith and lifestyle, so much so that they were unaware of the good works they were doing as they shared God's love. Following Jesus means being an everyday disciple, not just one who shows up on Sundays. Instead, the challenge of being a disciple is to live with eyes open, seeing Christ in each person and extending the love of Christ to each. Identify ways you could live out this passage and do for Christ.
I think we've talked about some
Yeah,
of them.
I think we have.
I think, there has been talk about the youth rally this next summer, and definitely a way for the kids to see a different part of the world.
Yep.
The last time I was in New Orleans, I was down by the harbor, and a gentleman came up and begged from me, and he on behalf of the fact that he was a vet, and I've thought about this ever since then. It's been a while, and I, for some reason, got a feeling that this wasn't a good thing for me to do. So I didn't, and I started walking away, and he just started screaming at me. And then you think, ooh, did I make a mistake? Was that a judgment call that you can't call back?
Yeah, I mean, there's safety. If your gut's going, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I think, it also calls for wisdom, I think, yeah, it's tough when face to face with some of that stuff.
Or just being aware. Walking down a street in, I think it was Philadelphia with the kids on a class trip, and there was a cardboard box in the middle of the sidewalk, and the kids walked around it. They didn't make any attempt to kick it or move it, but one bumped it, and there was a voice inside. There was an individual sleeping in that cardboard box on top of a heating grate, and the kids were just beside themselves.
They had no concept of it.
No, it wasn't that. They just were unaware that this kind of thing goes on.
Exactly.
Remember the first time I saw a homeless person, I was in a car coming into Los Angeles, and there was a person sleeping in the doorway of a church. And you don't see that. And so I think the point is that there has to be an awareness.
Absolutely. We have to seek that awareness and help others have that awareness too. Yeah, I can't remember, it was a couple of years ago, we had gone up to the cities a couple times to go to the Science Museum.
Oh, love it.
Love that place.
It's a great place.
But the exit we always took when we were leaving to get onto one of the interstates took us by, at that time, they were kicked out after that. But there's a bunch of homeless camp, and there's a bunch of tents and stuff. And every time we drove by, we made a point of talking about that,
What time of year?
It was cold. I remember it being cold, but not like January.
Those people that operate the shelters, that invite people in, that house them, that feed them, the work they do. United Gospel Mission, Elm Sioux Falls, the banquet.
The banquet, yeah. Well, that's the thing. I'm really glad that we continue bringing kids to the banquet because they need to see it.
Yeah.
They need to understand. And I mean, unfortunately, any one of us is a couple tragedies away
Right.
from being in a tough situation too.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
let's have some compassion. Yeah. Yep. What attitude does Jesus want us to embrace as we encounter others with needs? We were just kind of talking about that, you know, openness and awareness. But I think wisdom too. I guess, I don't know. I struggle a bit with, like, you know, somebody's on the side of the road and I'm like, I'm a woman alone in my car.
Yes.
I'm not Darla. I'm not
I know,
stopping.
we've had this argument, she and I.
I'm like, I got a phone. I will
Yeah.
call. I will get you
Yeah.
help, but I'm sorry. I'm not. Chuck will just stop and help anybody. I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, yeah. I'm not going to do that.
Yes. Yeah, personal safety, but your situation, situational safety.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you got to think about it.
Yeah, and that's not selfishness. It's just, I'd like to stay alive.
That's right. I have things to do. I have people to hug.
But, you know, but it's never simple. It's never simple.
No.
You know. And what does it feel like when someone extends compassion to you?
Sometimes it's overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
When my husband died, it was overwhelming.
Yeah.
It was constant. It was the show. I don't even know how to describe it. The food, the visits, the talks, the kindnesses, it was just almost to where you go, I don't know how to react to this anymore.
Yeah.
And it's an eye opener.
Mm-hmm.
It's an eye opener, that sort of thing. So, and you're grateful for it. And at the same time, you think, you know, really, you shouldn't. I don't deserve this.
Yes, I don't. You don't need to make a fuss over me.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
everybody's going,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, we do.
Yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, that age-old, no, it's, you know, that's so.
Yeah.
It's a double edge.
It is. It is. I think there's gratefulness and some joyfulness in it, but yeah, there's that sense of don't make a fuss over me, or I feel awkward or vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's easier to offer to others than
you're raw.
Yeah,
You're really raw during that time.
that's a good word for it.
So
yeah.
everything just, you know, everything touches you. And,
Yeah. Well, and you know, and you can't control everything. You never know when something's going to hit you, and you know, you start crying or you get choked up, or you're like, you know, and that's not what you want happening, but that's just what's.
Has it happened when you've been giving a sermon?
Yes. Oh my, yes. It's better than it used to be.
So how do you?
Well, you know, I think I usually acknowledge it. I'm like, sorry guys, you know, I'm really feeling this strongly. Give me a minute. People are usually understanding.
Oh,
And then just trying to kind of go, okay, I need to get a point across here. You know, it's not about my emotions in this moment. I'm going to be honest about it, but it's not about my emotions. It's not about taking care of me right now. It's about expressing this. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you know, right after Curlin died, it was hard. It was so hard not to be teary and not to be overcome with emotion, you know, because I'd try to set it aside and then it would just kind of come galloping back, and I'd be like, no, I got to extend up and pray now. I can't cry right now. I need to go pray, you know. Yeah, it's not easy. But I think as long as you're not making it all about yourself, I think people appreciate the honesty of it.
people always appreciate honesty.
Yeah.
I think they do.
Yeah. Because
And also showing signs of emotion. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it just recognize that this is how they're reacting to something.
I remember I was doing a Good Friday sermon, and I had Chuck and I and Sophia, when she was real little, had gone to see my folks in Arizona, and we'd gone up to this one place that had the Stations of the Cross through the mountain, these statues, and it was very beautiful and very moving. And I'd taken pictures, and so I used those pictures of those stations to do my sermon, and just talking about what it was like to walk this journey up and around the mountain and having these different scenes revealed to you. And then you get to the one where Mary is holding Jesus, the Pietà. And I just had to stop. And I'm like, I can't say much about this. I just can't. Because I lost a baby, and it was nothing like holding your grown son, but and I got choked up, and actually, everybody understood, but we'd had a mother who had lost her adult daughter. And she talked about it afterwards. She said, yeah, I couldn't look at it either. And she appreciated that I was just like, nope, can't do it. Acknowledge it, that's part of the story, but I can't do it. Just imagine how it must have been for her, Ugh.
There was a Pietà, and I'm not an art person, so I'm not familiar, but we were in Rome, and we were doing a tour of churches, and there was a mother and child, and it was called a Pietà, but the tour guide said, please look at the knee on the statue, so the knee of the person of Mary, and there was a big crack in it. And he said the story is Michelangelo was so fond of this statue when he made it that he would talk to it all the time, and when she would never answer him back, he got frustrated and he hit her knee with the hammer. And I thought, because you can believe,
Yeah.
But it was so beautiful. You could see why someone could become attached.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's very powerful, very powerful.
There's something about art that just speaks to you in a different way.
Some.
Yes. Yes.
Some.
Some just makes me go.
Soup cans don't do it for me, but
I get the point intellectually, but it's not moving me like art can do.
Yeah.
Is it easier to give than to receive acts of kindness? Yeah, we kind of talked about that. Yeah.
A lot easier.
Yeah. Well, and if you're giving, you're coming from not a position of power, but a position of, confidence or something.
Well, just a different position. Just a different viewpoint, and you don't have to worry about how you react. And,
it's more vulnerable to receive.
Yeah, no doubt.
What needs do you see around you? Oh my Lord, so many. Look closely, for you might be surprised at whom you might meet in your neighbor, in the poor, in your community, in the imprisoned, the lonely, and the hungry. It just might be the very face of Christ in your midst. Close your eyes and imagine driving home from your congregation. As you imagine driving by buildings and people, try to identify people who might have special needs. The challenge of the disciple is to extend compassion today, tomorrow, and then the next day. How might you get involved in helping others, especially the hungry, thirsty, naked, sick, and those imprisoned? And how might your congregation help in those needs?
Yeah, always a question.
Yeah, we try to.
Yeah.
One thing, every year Chuck takes a group to the prison, and it's hard to get enough people to go. And I understand that. I did it once. I don't know.
Marv did it several.
That's tough.
Yeah.
It was when that door clangs behind you.
Yeah, when they lock you in.
Yeah.
And these individuals sit there with whatever they've done. And there you sit. Marv would talk about it when he got home.
Yeah.
It's very...
Some of these are really, really hard. It's not too hard to buy some socks and put it in a box. It's a very good thing to do.
It is.
It's a lot harder to sit down in a prison with someone who's there for a very good reason and extend the love of God and receive that extension from them as well.
Well, it's not easy to sit down with someone at the banquet.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
The kids shy away from it when I've been out there.
Yeah, the gentleman I talked to when I had my meal this past October, I was having a hard time understanding, his train of thought was kind of all over the place. And he's also speaking with an accent that made it harder for me to understand.
Yeah.
But, we still managed to have a
We
conversation.
shared some time with them.
Yeah.
And you are dealing with, in the schools, at the banquet, you're dealing with a lot of mental illness issues, and
Absolutely.
emotional, behavioral. Put a title on it,
Yeah.
And it's off-putting.
It is. It's really hard.
It is.
For sure. It's somebody who intimidates you, scares you.
I would, at conferences, and parents would come in, and this happened over a long period of time, and they would share things with me, and I think, don't do that. I don't want to know this, because then that colors how I see your child,
Yeah.
and it makes it so much harder to do what I need to do, and it would just be to the point where you just shook your head. You just knew it was going to happen, and you maybe spoke about the child for maybe 5-10 minutes, and then the rest of the time it was all about me.
Yeah.
And then you think, okay, I understand you have a need to talk to somebody, but why me? Because
I'm here to talk about your kid.
yeah, I got no advice, and and speaking as a teacher, the kids that would come in and the things they would share after school, you just kind of
That's the
you
thing.
don't know how to react, I guess.
For both my kids, all through elementary until they get to be teenagers, they brought everybody home. I swear, every person who was in a really bad situation, they brought them home.
Well, because they knew how you and your husband would react. Yeah. They knew.
And and I knew these terrible things were happening, and I was seeing behaviors that I was not okay with, but also understanding where it's coming from, but also trying to be like, no, that's not okay. And we have.
And there's futility.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't know, we've fed so many meals to so many kids, and you're just like, I feel like I'm spitting in the wind here. But at least for today,
It's a step forward. It's
and not to give up hope.
well, and you're always trying to, like you want to be a sanctuary. You want your kitchen table or your church, or you want it to be a sanctuary for people, and they're comfortable and they feel free to visit, to talk. But,
We've also had somebody steal money from our house.
oh wow, yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's part of the package. You open yourself up to things.
Yes.
And to try not, you set up boundaries, stronger boundaries, but to try not allow that to stop you. It was discouraging.
Yeah, of course it would be.
Compassion is not the only challenge for disciples. Each day we, as disciples of Jesus, struggle with forgiveness, grace, responsible living, courage, love, stewardship, and other issues. Sin yanks at us to go our own way with no regard for anyone but ourselves. Yeah, Chuck says, we're really good at me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we have other Christians to encourage, support, and challenge us. We have God's word to ground us in the teachings of Jesus. We have the Spirit to nudge and prod us. How have the challenges of being a disciple of Jesus changed for you over the years?
Well, that's a tough question. Challenges. I think when I moved to this area, I wasn't attending church. I'd gotten away from it after high school. College years sometimes just kind of,
That's pretty normal.
yeah, and I married into this family that for their family and their relatives' family, this was a very big thing. And I didn't realize it. I had trouble recognizing it. I didn't quite understand. But then as years go on, I kept understanding more.
Yeah. Well, I think our understanding deepens. Our experiences give us more, shape us. And I think just our awareness, our own where we're at in life, opens us to awareness of different things. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Changes it. I'm thinking about the first years when I taught school and I didn't have children, and then coming back 24 years later, and then boy, has my attitudes changed.
I bet.
You know, a whole different way of looking at those kids.
Absolutely. Yeah. Today, what is the greatest challenge for you as a disciple of Jesus? I think mine has stayed, no matter what age I am, I think it's stayed the same. Fighting against my own selfishness and my own apathy.
Apathy, that's a great word. Even sounds like what it is. Yeah. And it's easy to become that.
It is.
Or you're just so overwhelmed with, that you can't look anywhere without seeing need.
Yep. It's just, it's there and there and there and there. And it's like you feel like I can't do anything that's going to help.
Which is apathetic, and then...
Yeah, well, and I like compassion fatigue, those kind of things are real, We have to be mindful of some of those things as well. Be recharged. Hoping that Thanksgiving will be a recharging time. And what might help you face that challenge?
Other people.
Yeah.
See what other people do.
Yeah.
The ones who just spend every minute of every day giving. And I know them. I am lucky enough to know some of them. And it's just oh boy, if you can do that, I better step up to the plate. Yeah. But I definitely think other people.
Yeah, the
great examples.
The couple that we're doing Thanksgiving with, she's just the most kind and loving person I have ever known.
Isn't that great?
Ever. And it's just... And just being able to hang out and have those conversations and encourage each other.
And really recharge your batteries.
Yeah. But it's just, it's one of those times, you laugh your butt off with him and you just have all these deep and meaningful conversations with her. And
it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah. Yeah, we always laugh that those two got together. She's so calm and unflappable, and
he's high energy.
And he's high energy and goofy and crazy, and she calmed him down a bit, and he helped her discover that, yes, I do have anger. And I can react. I never heard her raise her voice once until she got married.
Well, if you're going to, that's when you're going to do
That's when you're going to do it. And this is before the kids. Oh, God.
Yeah. So it's worth the long drive.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We've been doing this for 16 years now.
Nice.
And just be, family situations. They didn't have family. Parents weren't available. Ours weren't available, and so we just and now it's a little harder now though, because now my parents do stay. They don't go south anymore, and Chuck's mom is on her own now, and so it's like, what do we do? But they've been very, very gracious. They're like, you've been doing this for forever. We know this is important to you. You go right ahead. I'm like, are you sure? I feel really guilty.
The sandwich generation.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
I remember those days.
Yep.
There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer.
Yeah, but now our kids are grown and not all of them are going to be there. I'm like,
yeah,
I
and
don't
that's
like
something
that.
else you face.
I don't like it.
Yep. I know.
Yeah, 2 of their 3 kids can't be there. And now one of ours probably isn't going to be there. Like,
oh, let's hope today's a good day for her. Let's hope she just builds that energy back up.
I sure hope
Whatever
so.
bug she has kind of starts to dissipate.
Yeah, it's a respiratory
Yeah.
gunk thing.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of that.
Oh,
Well, I'm working at the nursing home. Oh, good night. They're
Yes.
exposed to a lot. But anywho, so we can close with our prayer here. Oh, Christ, continue to teach us to be your disciples. Forgive us when we seem slow to learn. Challenge us to grow in your word. Yeah, slow to learn. Yeah, every day. This week, each day, name your greatest challenge as a disciple of Christ. Ask God to help you with that challenge. Well, that's going to stick with me. Slow to learn. Yes. Why, yes. Slow to learn. But we have Christ the King this Sunday, and it is, I got to think, it's an even numbered Sunday. And so English and Dovry will have 8:30, and Trinity and St. Olaf will have 10:30. Yeah, keep it all straight. Everyone have a great Thanksgiving. Thanks for joining us.